Welcome to this week's Parsha Shiur, Parsha's Mattos, Masei. Before I begin, I just want to take the opportunity as we come to the end of the season. This is the last Shiur for this season. Mitzvah will start again, resume after the summer. But I just want to take the opportunity to thank the various platforms which share these Divrei Torah. And I'm very grateful to Anytime and YU Torah and other platforms for sharing the Torah very widely. And to you listening out there, thank you for listening, and wishing you a happy and healthy summer, and please God, Besuras Tovas for all of Klal Yisrael. Parshas Mattos Masei. Let's begin in the first box. If you're listening online, please email me at j.golker@gmail.com. I'll send you the handout. The Parsha begins as follows: Vayedaber Moshe el Roshei HaMattos livnei Yisrael leimer, zeh hadov asher tziva Hashem. And then it talks about the Parsha of Nedarim, Ish ki yidor nedel Hashem, Hishov hashvua le'isar isar, etc., etc. But what's notable, what's interesting, is that the Parsha begins that Moshe doesn't talk to the whole of the Jewish people, doesn't say Vayedaber Moshe b'nei Yisrael, but rather Vayedaber Moshe el Roshei HaMattos. He's talking to the leaders. Why is it that the Parsha of Nedarim is given to the leaders? We've discussed this in the past. A few years ago we gave various pirushim, but I came across something very interesting in Rabbi Rosner's Sefer. He quoted Rabbi Yehuda Gershoni in a kovetz that he wrote a very beautiful piece. So I want to share that with you. And if you look at the second box, we'll go through it together. The Torah designates the Parsha of Nedarim and Shavuos to the leaders. That even the leaders, Hamanhigim Esaom, who lead the people, even they have to be very careful to keep their promises. Often, due to communal pressure, or some other perceived value or good, leaders could be meireh heter. They could rationalize. They don't have to keep their word. Therefore, the Torah emphasizes. Even on the leaders, the prohibition of lo yachal devarei, do not profane your words. Lo yasu divrei chulin, their words should not become secular, mundane, applies to them as well. Because the leader who wants to succeed, he has to lead his flock, his people, with holiness and with purity. And somebody who profanes his words, for whatever perceived reason, he himself, his words become profane, and he has profaned his position. He should not make his words profane, but rather whatever he says, he should do. That is the importance of a leader. That's why a leader, because he might rationalize himself. I make a promise, what can I do? I have to do that. I heard a story not long ago, an amazing story about Rabbi Aaron Kotler. That one time there was a Yid who came over after the Holocaust, after the war years. That's a Brachana Yid. He had lost everything. And Rabbi Aaron encouraged him to rebuild, to get married, and to start a family. And with a lot of effort and courage and bravery and chizuk from Rabbi Aaron, that's exactly what he did. He got married, and he merited having a daughter. And then Rabbi Aaron said to him, but he said, please God, your daughter should grow up, and please God, I will dance at her wedding. And sadly, it wasn't to be, because when the daughter was 10 years old, that fateful day, the Rabbi Aaron Kotler passed away. And the father had remembered Rabbi Aaron's promise, and it wasn't to be. It wasn't. He couldn't dance at the wedding. Anyway, years moved on, and sure enough, the daughter got engaged and got married. And then, in the height of the dancing, all of a sudden, Rabbi Shiur Kotler walked in. Rabbi Shiur Kotler was, of course, the great Rosh Yeshiva of Lakewood, the son and successor of Rabbi Aaron Kotler. And he came in to the circle and danced with the father and the chosen, and the father couldn't believe it. After the dancing, he was speaking to Rabbi Shiur Kotler, and he said, Rabbi Shiur, how come you came? We don't know each other so well. So Rabbi Shiur told him, let me tell you what happened. My father was in his last hours in this world, and I was with him, and he said to me, there's a fellow, his name is Schwartz, he lives in, I forget where, somewhere in New York. He said, I made a promise to him. I made a promise that his daughter will, please God, get married, and I will dance at the wedding. HaKadosh Baruch Hu dictated otherwise. But I want to make you my shliach to do that. And therefore, you see Rabbi Aaron, think about that. The achrayas, what is he thinking about in his last moments in this world? He's thinking about another Jew. And he's thinking about how important it is to keep his promise. That's what Rabbi Aaron was thinking about in his last moments, his last hours in this world. And Rabbi Shneir was able to be a shliach and to be Mekayim Diburei. Let's just finish off. Rabbi Yehuda Gershuni, he quotes the Kedushas Levi. I'm at the second paragraph in the second box. Kosev Bar Kedushas Levi. Lo yachel devorei. Misha eino eise diburei chulin. Somebody who doesn't make his words profane. Shoymal kol meitzi piv v'kedusha v'tar yesera. Oz kol hayetzim v'yaseh. In other words, the Kedushas Levi has a Hasidic twist on this pasuk. We understand it normally to mean lo yachel devaro. A person makes a promise; he shouldn't profane his word. Kol hayetzim piv yaseh. Whatever he articulated, yaseh, he should carry out. Says the Kedushas Levi, that's a different pshat, perhaps an additional pshat. If a person he keeps his word properly, with holiness and with purity, pirush, that if he lives with Kedusha and Tara and he tries to keep his promises, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help him fulfill his promise. Lo yachal devarim, a person keeps his promises, he says his word is his word, whatever comes out of his mouth, Hashem will help him do. Not that he will do, Hashem will help him do. Pirush, like it says, like the Chazal say, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the tzaddik can make a gezeir and HaKadosh Baruch Hu will fulfill that decree. And that can transform HaKadosh Baruch Hu's approach from din to rachamim. And then he quotes a lovely little anecdote with Rav Kook. Rabbeinu HaGadol Rav Kook Zatzal Omar Pama Milsa de B'tichusa, like a light comment. He said, "Ki simonu shel tzaddik," with the simon of a tzaddik, ein rak zeh shel goyzev HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekayim. Is not that a tzaddik makes gezeras, says something, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu fulfills his words. Ela gam zeh shel mekayim asher HaKadosh Baruch Hu goyzeh. The sign of a tzaddik is also that he does what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is goyzeh. That's Rav Kook. Okay, let's move on. Second idea. This is also, I saw in reference in Rabbi Rosner's Sefer, quoting Rabbi Ben Sia Ferrer. He says something very interesting. The Pasuk says, later on in Parshas Mattos, we deal with the story of Hagolas Kalim, i.e., after they were victorious against Midian, then we have the whole story of Kasher and Kalim, and the famous Pasuk says, Kol dova sheyova be'esh tavira be'esh, whatever is used in fire shall pass through in fire. And then it will become pure. So if I want to buy a treif pot, I've got to kasher it. I've got to take it. If it was used in fire, I've got to put it through fire. However, it must also be cleansed with sprinkling water. And even something which is not used in fire shall pass through water. So we're very familiar with that. That's called hagolas kelim. If it's treif, and if it's not treif, you still have to take it to the mikvah. So if I buy a keli, a vessel that was produced by a non-Jewish person, it may be unused, but I still have to take it to the mikvah and toivel it, even though I'm not getting rid of any treif, any issa which is inside it. There's something called hagolas kelim. In addition, if I buy something which was previously used, then I've got to get rid of the issa before I use it. But even if it's a brand new, fresh keli, I've still got to do tfilas kelim and take it to the keli mikvah. So 3 questions. Question number 1, why is it necessary? Why is it necessary to toivel at all? It's not treif, it's a new keli. It's never been used before. So why do I have to do tvilas kelim? Why do I even need to dip it into a mikveh? Second of all, why is it only if I only acquire it, I buy it or acquire it from a non-Jewish person? There's no such requirement if I borrow it or if I rent it from him. In other words, if I were to rent a keli from a non-Jewish person for a week, for a month, and it's never been used before, there's no requirement of tvilas kelim. Or if I borrow it from him, only if I actually acquire it from him for permanently. And third of all, why is it only metal kalim? It doesn't apply to klicheres or other earthenware vessels. Why? So, Rabbi Ben Sia Ferrer says the following: life is not about having everything prepared for us. In the midbar, all our needs were taken care of. We didn't work for food, we had them on. We didn't need to worry about water, we had the be'er. And shelter as well, we had the Anmi covered and to protect us. Now, as we're about to enter Eretz Yisrael, we're being taught that we cannot rely on others to provide for us. We have to take responsibility ourselves. And therefore, when it comes to kelim, we have to do some act to show that we are taking responsibility, and we have to demonstrate our ownership of it. So that applies only to significant kelim and only to ones which are permanently owed. We have to do something about these kelim. It's a bit similar to when a person immerses in the mikveh, he emerges a new person. He's a new entity. He goes in Tomei, he comes out Tahar. He goes in non-Jewish, he comes out Jewish. Well, so to a keli, there's something that the new owner has created. And therefore, the whole purpose, the whole point of Tfilas Kelim, even for a kosher keli, which has no issa in it whatsoever, we have to do an act which demonstrates our ownership of it, and that we're taking responsibility for this. And that is really teaching Klal Yisrael. And that's why that's the purpose of Tfilas Kelim, and that's why it's only if it's acquired from a non-Jew and not it's just borrowed or rented from him. It's got to be something which is permanently ours. We have to do something to create it, to make it, to demonstrate our ownership. We actually have to do something. And that's why it's only metal kelim and not cheap earthenware vessels and things like that, because it only applies to significant kelims and to ones which are permanently owned. Teaching Klal Yisrael, the purpose of this is to teach Klal Yisrael the importance of being independent. And of course, up to a certain age, it's okay to take from parents, from others, to prepare ourselves to get to the point where we can sustain ourselves and assist others. But it's not a healthy long-term setup to do otherwise. A week or two ago, my wife and I had the privilege and zuchus and bracha to marry off a daughter. And I was sitting at one of the Sheva brachas, a few away from Rebbe Ehrentreit, the wife of the late Dayan Ehrentreit Zatzal. And we were talking, and she told me one time that the Dayan was this very large convention, and he wasn't planning on speaking. He was there gracing it at some level, but he was asked to speak. And without much notice, they said to him, "Can the Dayan speak?" And he said, "Okay, what would you like me to speak about?" They said, "Speak about shalom bayis, how to make marriage work." Okay, he got up and he said the following: "I've been asked to speak about how to make marriage work. Do you want to know how to make marriage work? You have to work on marriage." And he used to say this. I heard him say this many times at a wedding, standing under the chuppah. He made reference to the ksuba. If you look at the top of the next page, this is how all ksuba starts. A certain day of B'Shabbos, L'Chodesh, whatever, B'Shnas Chamesh Alofim V'Sheva Meos, whatever the year is, Lebrias Oilim Minish Onumonim Khan, wherever it is, London, New York, Yerushalayim, Eich, and then naming the Chosen, Amallah Lahadar, the name of the Kala, Havelele into Kedas Moshe Yisrael, that he's going to be his wife according to Moshe Yisrael, according to the laws of Moshe and Klal Yisrael, Va'ana Afloch Va'oike Va'ezen Va'fanis Lichi. That I'm going to work and honor and feed and support you as the custom of Jewish men. The Palchin and Moikrin Vizonin and Mafanis in the Shem Bekushta, who work and honor and feed and support their wives faithfully. That's how every ksuba starts. But the Dayan would say the following. He would say that the husband commits to the wife and says, Va'ana efloch, I'm going to work, Va'ikir Va'ezun Va'farnis. He would put a comma differently. He says, Va'ano efloch, I will work hard to honor you, to feed you, to support you. But the key is to work, to take independence and to do, to be proactive. Again, a person can be sustained and looked after until you get to the point where you're able to assist others. That's okay. But the concept of taking ownership and being independent is an important value. Okay, 2 more ideas. The following one is, I heard from Rabbi Yisrael Besser, a very beautiful idea. We talk about the Shevet Gad and Reuven. The Pasuk says in Lamed Beis, Miknei Rav Hoyle Bnei Reuven of Bnei Gad Otzum Oid. The Bnei Gad and the Bnei Reuven had large cattle, large flocks. Vayavo Bnei Gad Bnei Reuven Vayomer Moshe Velazar Kohen, etc. That they wanted to stay in Eva Hayarden. Now, again, there's lots of Torah on this. We've spoken about this in the past. But just one insight, a famous vort that the Kotzker Rebbe would say in the name of his Rebbe, Reb Simcha Bunim of Peshischa. Umikne Rav Hoyel Bnei Reuven and Bnei Gad. There is a Hasidic idea that the reason why Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven wanted to stay on Eva Hayarden is they felt very connected to Moshe Rabbeinu, and therefore Moshe Rabbeinu was going to be buried be'Eva HaYarden. They wanted to stay there because they would have that connection with Moshe Rabbeinu. That would help them in their avodas Hashem. Like a chassid, he connects to his Rebbe, and therefore he connects closely. He wants to be in his proximity, to spend as much time as possible with him. And even l'achar Masei, you go to Uman, you go to the cave of your Rebbe, that gives you a lot of chizuk. And therefore, the desire of the Bnei Reuven and Bnei Gad was to be close to Moshe Rabbeinu in his burial, and therefore they didn't want to come into Eretz Yisrael. That's what the Kotzker would say in the name of Rasimcha Bunu Peshischa, Umikne Rav Hoya Lebnei Reuven. They had a good kinyan, a strong kinyan, a connection with Moshe Rabbeinu, and that's why they wanted to stay. When the Pnei Menachem was the son of the Imrei Emes. I remember the Pnei Menachem, but he was the son of the Imrei Emes. He asked his father, if that's the case, why was Moshe Rabbeinu so upset with them? Surely it's a good thing to have a connection with your Rebbe. That's where you get your chizuk. That enhances your avodas Hashem. Why was he therefore so upset? The answer is because Moshe Rabbeinu felt it's good to have a Rebbe and it's good to enhance your avodas Hashem, but it's got to come from you. He can't do the work for you. It's got to be self-motivated and generated. That's really why he was upset with them. You can't use the Rebbe as a crux. You've got to do it yourself. Yisrael Besser told the following story. Two couples were friendly with each other, and they were both coming up to their 10th wedding anniversary. And one went and bought a beautiful piece of jewelry for his wife, and the other one also bought a piece of jewelry. And the first one he gave it to her, and she wasn't so happy with it. He said to her, "What's the problem?" He said, "Do you know how our friend, how he gave his wife the gift? You see, the first one was a wealthy young man, and therefore he was able to go to the store and just buy something and give it to his wife. But the second one was not wealthy. They struggled financially. And therefore he was working by the hour, and he asked his boss, could he work overtime? Could he work through lunch for a few weeks, and therefore over the course of many weeks of working through his lunch break, he'll earn up enough money to go and buy his wife a piece of jewelry for their 10th wedding anniversary." And the boss said fine. And over many weeks he accumulated enough money to buy his wife a nice piece of jewelry. That came from him. And of course it meant so much more to his wife. That's the point. Mikne Rav is very good, but if you use it as a crux and it's not self-generated and doesn't come from you, then it's lacking. One final idea, and this I saw in Rabbi Avi Wiesenfeld's new Sefer in the name of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Parshas Masei, one of the things that it deals with before the close of Sefer Bamidbar is Orei Miklot. The Pasuk says, Daber b'nei Yisrael v'martu aleim ki atem over Masei Yarden at Zeknoan v'krisim lochem Orei Miklot tiena lochem, etc., etc. V'nos shomer etzeach maka nefesh b'shgoga. The famous story of the Orei Miklot, a person kills b'shogeg, he has to run to the cities of refuge to avoid the Goel Hadom. Now, again, lots to say, but just one short and simple, very beautiful idea. The Gemara in Mattos says, Miklat hayakosov al pashas drachim. The Gemara in Mattos Yudon Beis, the final box on the page, says that they would signpost the ways to make sure that the person who killed b'shogeg would be able to get there very quickly. Miklat hayakosov al pashas drachim kadei sheyakeh ritzech v'yifan l'sham, that the ritzech will be able to get there and not be miswayed, be waylaid on the way, and he'll be able to get there quickly. Amr of Kahana Maikra tochin locha derech aseh locha achon lederech. Says the Lubavitcher Rebbe, many Jews find themselves at crossroads in their lives, standing at a fork in the road with Torah and mitzvahs on one side and a road leading to emptiness and discontent on another. Our responsibility is to point roadsides to contemporary Orei Miklot and help Jews today live a meaningful and enriching life. And that's really what Tochin LaHaderech means today, to help Jews do exactly that. And then I close with the end of this season of another series of Shiurim to thank all the various platforms, Torah Anytime, YU Torah, for giving me the wonderful opportunity to be spread Torah and to help people enhance their own lives. It has enhanced my lives, enriched my life enormously. And I thank you all for listening and wish you a healthy and refreshing summer and Mitzvah Hashem Besuras Tovas for Klal Yisrael and across the world. Thank you.